Hi, folks, and thanks for clicking on this video. I'm Dr. Larry Cavanaugh, and I'm delighted to say that the Louisa trilogy is now complete with the release of the final book in the series called Purgatory Goes Viral. Some of you who have clicked on me before may say, oh God, he's back on the subject of purgatory again. He's all wrong about purgatory and he won't stop. He's a fanatic. Well, that's because 2 years ago, I gave a talk at my two parish churches, St. Jude and Immaculate Conception, on the subject of visions of purgatory, which was based on a presentation from a bright young person named Carlo Acutis. It was all about famous people and saints through the ages who had visions of things that happened in purgatory. I did point out that some of these visions apparently contradicted some of the other visions. Well, I gave that talk a total of 3 times to our two parish churches. And the sum total of attendance at all 3 talks combined was fewer than 100 people. But when I recorded it and put it on YouTube, the talk got clicked on by more than 30,000 people. And specific written comments were added by more than 500 of these. At least half of those comments were sharply negative, such as, you idiot, don't you know there's no such thing as purgatory? Why are you even bothering with this? However, the other half was just as sharply positive, such as, of course there's a purgatory. There has to be a place for cleaning dirty souls before entering heaven, and the Catholic Church endorses this. The two sides were completely irreconcilable, but that's okay, because everybody is entitled to their own opinion, and nobody can force somebody else to believe what they don't believe. This is America. At any rate, it was just too good to have a hot controversy like purgatory and not use it for the title of a book, especially the 3rd book of the trilogy. So today I want to talk about the 3rd book, which is simply titled Purgatory Goes Viral. All 3 books of the trilogy are now available on Amazon, and you can get it on Kindle or paperback or hardback. Just type in Purgatory Goes Viral or Louisa Trilogy or my name when you're on Amazon.com, and you should see it there. And I hope you enjoy it. The book is meant to be enjoyed. It's a happy book. It's not religious. It does not ask you to worry about whether purgatory exists or not. We'll all find out the answer to that question after we die, and I, for one, am in no hurry. The trilogy covers about 60 years in the life of a person who went to a Jesuit high school, was told by his principal not to go to Notre Dame, but went anyway, met some fantastic people along the way, proceeded on to graduate school and lots of higher education, followed by a cornucopia of careers involving NASA, farming, cattle, real estate development, country club management, physics teaching, sundials, book writing, and, oh yeah, raising 6 wonderful children with 1 wonderful wife. The best part is, I don't know how any of these careers worked before I plowed in, but somehow I managed to stumble through. I discovered that if you make enough mistakes and mess up enough times, you will eventually learn a little. Good Lord. I made a lot of mistakes when I was trying to run a farm, but my mistakes were not limited to farming. I made mistakes everywhere else as well. The first book in this trilogy was Nobody Here Wears Ostrich Leather Boots, and it was intended to be a good, fun read. You could take it to the beach and enjoy it. It was mainly about the goofiness that ensued while a PhD in physics and astronomy tried to learn how to be a farmer. The second book is called Outrageous Tales of Old Louisa, and it was motivated when I was getting to thinking about this new place that I was living, Louisa, Virginia, right in the middle of central Virginia, a state that's loaded with history, Revolutionary War, Civil War, home of presidents, close to the nation's capital. With all this history surrounding us, there's still not much you ever hear about Louisa County. So For a county that is surrounded by other people's history and doesn't have enough history of its own, the thing to do is invent some history. In that spirit, the second book is a series of tall tales about Louisa County, made up by a fictitious organization called the Faux History Society. This faux history is outrageous, far-fetched, totally exaggerated, mostly untrue, almost entirely untrue, but woven around real history. And it's also an easy read. Now, this brings us to the third book, which is in the spotlight today. It tells about many misadventures that were worse than I had in the first book, but which I left out because I feared they'd make me look even more stupid than I actually am. It starts with life at my undergraduate institution, which was Notre Dame. In those days, in the residence halls at Notre Dame, you mingled with football players. The football team was scattered throughout every residence hall on campus. We had two very big guys who lived in our dorm, and I was able to organize an arm wrestling tournament between them that really attracted a good crowd. Very much fun. I also sold sandwiches every night in the residence hall just before lights were out to earn some spending money. And this was the 60s when people were still smoking. And I ran for sophomore class president by passing out matchbooks. And they were printed with my slogan, "Kavanaugh will be matchless in office." I lost. On an endearing note, though, as life went on and I developed friends, we got to know a special priest. He was in his 80s and he was famous. He had written lots of books and lots of pamphlets. In fact, the theology department at the university is now named after him. His name was Father John A. O'Brien. At that time, he was retired, living in a tiny garret room on the top floor of the administration building, a floor that was nearly abandoned and nobody visited. He said Mass there every morning at 7 o'clock, usually all by himself. 5 of us friends volunteered to be his altar boys on a rotating basis. We didn't guarantee to be with him every day, only on the days when at least one of us could get up before 7 o'clock. But yet, the relationship that we developed with him was irreplaceable. It will live with me for the rest of my life. After Notre Dame, going to graduate school at Rice University in Houston, I had terrible anxieties trying to get a PhD because the thesis topic that I picked out turned out to be impossible. Midstream in that process, I had to change my topic and come up with a completely new one. Nerve-wracking, but it got done. Then off to NASA headquarters. I was thrilled that NASA hired me as a scientist. Stayed at NASA for several years before the aforementioned move to the farm. A few extracurriculars while I was at NASA included my kids getting tear gassed at the Washington Monument, getting waved at by Nixon personally, receiving a set of friendly letters from a Russian scientist who was trying to probe me for some chatter about what we were doing at NASA, and a few other things. Leaving NASA and moving to the farm was pretty much covered in the first book, so I'm skipping most of that in the third book. In the third book, suddenly, in the blink of an eye, my 6 children are grown up, and I've entered the age of grandchildren. I have some delightful and lovable grandchildren. One of them wrote epic poetry as a 5-year-old. Another one became a bartender as a 9-year-old, making black and tans for all the adults in the family. These kids are fun people to be around. And sorry to say, most of them aren't kids anymore. In the blink of the other eye, we also find ourselves with me teaching physics and astronomy at Louisa County High School. I couldn't stand to do all those ordinary, familiar, ho-hum experiments that are in all the textbooks and standard lab manuals. So we did some projects like investigating whether there was anywhere in the US where global warming is going backwards, whether we could use a giant pendulum to detect tides, whether we could produce a formula for the speed of domino falls, how it would feel to be shrink wrapped, whether we could build an air cannon that would drive a golf ball better than Big Bertha, whether we could make a giant trebuchet with welded steel pipes, and other things. Beyond grandchildren, what? Happy retirement? No, I do not believe in retirement. I am now an octogenarian. I am 81 years old as I record this, but I'm never going to retire completely. Well, I might not be doing the same job, but I just can't quit life. And I hope you don't either. So what do? Well, I got a bucket list to talk about. In fact, writing this book is part of my bucket list. And a lot of it is fun. I talk about that in the book. And then, of course, this Purgatory Goes Viral thing. The whole reason for titling the book that way was to revisit some of the god-awful things that people said about me, and to hope that someday soon I can give another talk that people get excited about in the same way. That's it. I've only told you a tiny smidgen about Purgatory Goes Viral. You ought to read the book. It'll be just as much fun to take it to the beach as the other two, and it will round out almost everything else that I wanted to say about Louisa. But, oh shucks, I just remembered something else. No, wait, I remembered two other things. Too bad. There's another book coming, but it won't be part of a trilogy. So get the book and see. If you don't like it, I'm sure Amazon won't give you your money back, but you'll have a nice book on your shelf. And also, I can say, if you haven't read the first two books, go ahead and read the third book anyway. You don't need to know the first two books to read the third book. So have a nice day, have a great day, and take care of yourself, and goodbye.